Okay, welcome. Welcome to folks online and folks in the room. We're so glad you're here. My name is Jane Dutton, and I'm one of the members of the Adult Faith Committee who helped to plan these sessions. And this is part 2 of a 2-part series that we've had on healing. And for those of you who were here for Tana Shantz, who spoke last time, it was a very powerful testimony about her experience as a breast cancer survivor and her desire to share resources. And I just want to, for those of you who are here now, this is the usual size of our in-person group, but in like Tana's case, we had over 60 views within 24 hours. So there's a lot of people who are watching the videos, which we're really grateful for you being willing to do the recording. So this idea for the healers among us actually came from Rosanne. I had met with her and was a beneficiary of her practice. And she said to me, you know, Jesus is a healer. We need to have more sessions on healing. I thought, that's a great idea. And then I am a student of Barbara in her yoga classes, and I've experienced healing from her as well. And then Mel talked wonderfully about Emily and her practice, and we thought, oh man, there is a fantastic panel right here. So the way we're going to run this is each of our speakers is going to answer these 4 questions that they're prepared to answer. And so it will probably take between 10 and 15 minutes for each person, and then we'll have a good 15 minutes for questions and answers from you all in the audience. But we're very glad and very excited that here. So our first speaker is Barb Concannon, who is a yoga instructor. So I'm going to sit and ask her a question, and I'm going to pass the mic to her and let her answer the first one. So, Barbara, can you share a bit about your path to being the kind of healer that you are?
Thanks. Everybody okay? Okay, so I still am a runner, not as much as I used to be, and I was always getting injured. And so someone suggested adding a little bit of yoga practice. This was years and years ago, and I just was really drawn to it, how it really helped improve my running, reduce some issues I was having with my lower back, and I just continued the practice, and it was the physical benefits that really, really made a difference in my life. And the longer I practiced, the more I got interested in the philosophy of it. So I decided to become a teacher. And I had this wonderful teacher who spent a lot of time in India. She really brought a lot of the philosophy into the practice. And to me, I was so drawn to it because the philosophy is so much like Jesus' teachings. You know, it's about do not harm, do not lie, do not steal, practice cleanliness in mind and body, be grateful. And it just resonated with me. So I just continued it, and I teach it now. I'm retired from the university, but I teach about 10 classes a week. And it's just really benefited me in every way.
And so those who may not be as familiar with your form of healing, can you share a bit more about your particular practice and how you see it as working to help others heal?
Well, yoga is really about the going inward and becoming self-aware, and it's that mind-body connection. When there's more body awareness, you're much more quick to investigate and understand when something is going wrong, if you have back issues or whatever, rather than just kind of letting things linger. The postures, when you use those and you combine those with what's called pranayama or breath control and meditation, it really helps you not only physically, but then you begin to realize how it really calms your mind. If you have depression or anxiety, just a crazy scattering mind, you can really become more, just more centered. It helps if you have anxiety, depression, a lot of mental issues like that. And you can just kind of sit with those issues more and work through them.
So how have you learned about the impacts of your practice? You said a little bit about how it's impacted you, but how do you see it as impacting others?
Same thing. People will come up to me and say, I feel not only physically, but so much better. And more people are telling me that they're meditating more. I also teach a guided meditation. And more people are telling me they're trying to do that on a daily basis. And it just, it's very calming. It helps you to be more reflective, helps you to realize how you react to people, experiences, different things that are going on. And maybe for me, I learned to step back a little bit before I react as much. It also helps you to just sit with your emotions. And rather than trying to bury them or push them down, just kind of let things come up.
And finally, how do you see your faith as influencing your practice?
To me, I've always believed that there is a higher presence or a consciousness or God, however you define it. And it's definitely become resonating more with me through my yoga practice, because I believe God really resides within us and within everything. And if we're quiet, God speaks, He heals or she heals and supports. There's a yoga philosophy that we're made up of layers or sheaths. They're called the koshas. And the outermost layer, of course, is our physical body. But as you peel away those layers, you get to that inner layer that's really where you can experience that sense of maybe peace, contentment, bliss, our soul. So that's what it does for me.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, so Rosanne, we're going to turn to you. Rosanne Emanuale. Oh, sorry. Oh, you can't hear me at all. Oh, that's terrible. Okay. Rosanne Emanuale is an acupuncturist. And we'll start with you. I'm going to pass you the mic, and I'll say, can you share a little bit about your path to becoming an acupuncturist?
Well, good? Yeah, okay. It was a strange path, actually. It was a strange happening. My healing career, which is almost 28 years old, has nothing to do with my undergrad study. But I was living in an ashram in Chicago, and somehow, I don't recall, I was invited to go see a woman who did reflexology. I never heard that word in the 70s. So I had this foot massage, and then somehow that led to studying massage, which was very strange at the time. And then I was managing a health clinic on 5th Avenue and 14th Street in New York, and it was suggested to me that I study shiatsu, which is a Japanese form of body work. And there was a very reputable teacher there with a big school. So I said, are you kidding? Of course I'd love to do that. And then I did that for 12 years. And one day somebody came to my door, a guy, and he said, can I use your office? I'm here and I'm returning home to Jerusalem with my wife and 3 kids. I just finished studying acupuncture and we're going home. And I thought, wow, this guy can, bring a wife and 3 kids halfway around the world and back. And I said, do you think you could disrupt your world and do that, do the same? So I went to acupuncture school and wound up ultimately graduating in Boston, and my wonderful teacher who I already knew about, I was very blessed and I could assist her for 2 years, and so that's how I got to do acupuncture.
Can you talk a little bit more about your particular practice?
Thank you. So acupuncture is quite a big field, and the style that I use is Japanese acupuncture. And many of the practitioners in Japan were blind. So they became very, very sensitive. They could sense the condition of the level of the skin, and they came up with these very gentle practices. So Japanese acupuncture is known to be more gentle, and it has different tools than regular Chinese. And so the practitioners developed a tube that the blind practitioners could use. So that was a great idea. And all the different styles of acupuncture now use a tube. So the insertion goes very quick. It's barely felt at all. And I have several tools that are specific to Japanese acupuncture. So I could pass it around. I don't think I have time to describe all of them. But anyway, they're surface tools, and they work with the energy on the surface of the body. And then one of them I have, it's an insert of needle, and you can see how thin it is. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think that answers it, huh?
What have you learned about the impacts of your practice on other people? How do you learn about that, and what are the impacts?
Well, one of the other qualities of Japanese acupuncture is that it's palpatory. So, so we begin palpating various places on the abdomen, go to the neck and the toes, and determined by touch. And what was the question? Oh, and so people feel the change like right away. I can find many different combinations that address whatever issue, and some of the issues are not known of the person, and you know, they feel the benefit like right away. So I hear on a regular basis how happy they are. And then if you care to look at my website, I have many, many testimonials that people send me.
Lastly, how about your faith? How does your faith influence your practice?
Well, I would say my practice has influenced my faith because, you know, we're all like walking, healing machines, bodies. And usually, at least in the West, we don't really talk about that. And so when time after time, year after year, just the little insertion in the right places with the right skill makes such a difference that, you know, I just tell people sometimes, if every fourth grader could know the magic that's inside of us, that we had nothing to do with, but we were just born with it, we might have, you know, less bullies, and, you know, we might all have easier communication with each other. So it's a beautiful thing. I feel very blessed to do this, and it really has influenced my practice, my belief, which is maybe more Holy Spirit. You know, isn't this the, you know, embodiment of the Holy Spirit?
Thank you. And last but not least, Emily Sirona, I would really love to hear about your practice as well.
My name is Emily Sirona, and can you tell me the question one more time?
Just about your practice, about your healing practice. What kind of a healer are you?
Yes.
How did you get to where?
How did I get to where I'm at? And the second question is about my practice, right? Yeah. The first one's, okay, great. Thank you. I just lost track of it for a moment. So I started out in healing work. In undergrad, I studied neuroscience, and I learned about how much of the brain is in the body and how little our actual cognitive function has influence over that. And so I was also a very religious person, and I was studying Jesus and the healer that he was. And so I, in my senior year for spring break, I actually went to a convent and just took a spring break trip to meditate and relax and read a book and kind of sort through my faith. The book was about quantum physics, and it was written by a Catholic priest, which was really interesting. But I managed to have a healing session with one of the sisters there. So I experienced energy healing for the first time. And I was like, I have no idea what that is, but I need to do that. That's for me. And so I ended up graduating. Instead of going to become a therapist, I was like, I think I'm going to follow this body path. So I became a massage therapist and an energy healer. And I decided to eventually study with a teacher who taught Tai Chi and taught the application of that for how you manage your life. Like, if we're trying to be one with the universe, how do we do that in our calendar? How do we do that in our relationships? How do we do that in our, our meditation? All across the board, from the practical to the spiritual. And then I ended up really understanding trauma healing through the process. So my body work in massage therapy was always focused on nervous system healing. So that's really like the fulcrum around how you actually feel relaxed, not just want to feel relaxed or try to feel relaxed. It's how do you help your nervous system to settle down. And I started to realize from my own path that I needed different tools. And eventually that led me to the tool that I use the most right now, which is called Transforming Touch. And it's a somatic trauma healing modality that helps people to basically to very, very slowly and gently, fundamentally, helps you to start to fundamentally change the foundation of your nervous system so that you actually can rewire those childhood experiences that we carry with us as baggage as we go. So right now my practice is focused primarily on that, and as it focuses like how we experience ourselves in relationship, because that's where we often play out those childhood patterns the most. Yeah.
It's still a little bit mysterious. So tell us more about how you do it. What is your practice? If someone were coming to see you, how would it unfold?
So the work that I do is online and in person. So if a person arrived in person, they would lay on the table and I would put my hands at various points in their body that correspond to the parasympathetic nervous system. So I put my hands underneath their kidneys where the adrenal glands are. I'd put my hands underneath the back of their head where the brain stem is, put my hands at their ankles, and this very slow process of holding somebody's kidney and adrenals for 5 minutes creates an opportunity for them to relax, for them to settle down, for their adrenal glands, the ones that pump out all the cortisol and adrenaline and the things that make us really stressed out, to realize it's actually safe. And then it also creates an attunement experience. So a person who's gone through childhood trauma, or even just like a bad medical visit when they were a kid, they had great parenting, but they just had stress that never left their body, then they get an opportunity to kind of experience that safety with another human being. So it's work that's specifically designed for being nonverbal. It doesn't require talking. It doesn't require knowing what your trauma is. It doesn't require thinking about it or even feeling it really intensely, because trauma can be really scary to revisit. So it's very calming. And when we do it online, it's the same thing. We just say adrenal gland, and it's basically like a guided meditation that is also energy healing, and they walk away feeling more relaxed and having a fundamental change over time.
So I think you started to answer the third question, which was about the impacts. Can you talk a little bit more about the impacts?
Yes, so I started doing this work because I wanted to find tools that would create sustainable change, because a lot of us on the healing path try to get better, and we find things that help us to cope, but not necessarily to feel like, oh, I'm a different person now. I don't have the same problems. They feel like a distant memory. And so the things that people experience through this type of modality are more ease, more space around reactivity. So if they find themselves being really frustrated or irritable, or really anxious or overthinking, as they experience their nervous system getting more safety, they experience different aspects of themselves and their personality. Maybe they've never experienced being fully calm before. They get to experience that. Maybe they've only known themselves to be that way on vacation, and so they get to be their vacation self, but in the middle of a very stressful day. And then obviously that has a ripple effect through relationships. So I would say, overall it's about creating the opportunity for a person to kind of restore themselves to their baseline of ease, calm, ability to connect with others socially, ability to navigate life's ups and downs with some resilience, and the ability to maybe get stressed, but then also be able to come back down to feeling okay, as opposed to being stressed as a baseline. How about my faith? Last question. This is very directly related to my faith. So it started because I was, I was very religious, and I knew Jesus was a healer, and I was like, we gotta heal the world. And I also, for me, it was always hands-on healing. Like I took Jesus's healing stories very literally, and I was very curious to experience that. And then when I did experience it, it just felt like communion. It felt like being connected to the universe and to oneness and to God. And it just felt like, I don't know, moth to the flame, I guess, in terms of, it felt right. And over time, I resonate with what you were saying about it shapes your own faith, right? It shapes the way, especially the human body is such a miracle, and how it heals and how you feel with it when it's healing. And that has its own way of shaping how you see yourself, how you see the universe. And I would say, like, fundamentally, to me, faith is not just what we cognitively believe, it's what we are. It's sort of our just fundamental belief system about the world. Is God good? Are humans good? Is life going to be pain, or is life supposed to be bliss? And these perceptions, our perceptions of the world, are shaped by our life experiences. That's just how our brain works. We have life experiences, then our brain kind of catalogs those and expects life to be that way. And a lot of us, get dealt a pretty rough hand and have pretty stressful life experiences. And it seems like really awful to me that we would be stuck with that for the rest of our lives. And so, the healing path shapes my faith. The faith shapes my healing path. That, to me, like, the opportunity to actually be able to restore ourselves, to be restored in community with the help of another person, to feeling safe and whole again, is like, to me, that's Jesus' work, that's human work, that's God work, that's universe work, and it's, I think it's what life's all about.
Okay, now it's your turn. We've had now a little bit of a taste of three wonderful practitioners. What questions might you have for them? Okay, I'll come back. Do you have business cards? Do you have business cards? Okay, great. Okay.
Thank you all. I have a question about this comes from my own background as a scholar in women's and gender studies. So, is most of the clientele women? Do you have an equal proportion of male people, that's the wrong.
Whatever.
Example number one. I'm just interested in whether it has any possibilities for kind of moderating toxic masculinity.
Where's the acupuncture?
Anyway, any observations on that?
Okay, I think, yeah, so
I think we all have a response to that. The VA sends me people, so they're mostly men, and they love it. They do really, really well. They have a certain system, so I get to treat people like twice a week for, some time, and they really improve. And women, I don't know, we have our hormonal ups and downs every month, so I think women tend to know that there's something they can do, that they can regulate how they feel. So maybe that's why women tend to come first. But once they have, experience my work, and I think all three of us, then the men come as well.
And for me, it was probably 80% women, but the longer I teach, I'm teaching more gentle classes as I age, and I'm seeing more and more men coming, which is awesome because they require flexibility and balance just as much as women do. So I think it's just as important for men to take some nice gentle yoga classes as well. Did you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I think toxic masculinity exists because there's a lot of pain under the surface, right? Like, culturally, we don't provide a lot of opportunities for men to express themselves. We don't, to be emotional. There's a whole world of that's set up that creates these conditions for toxic masculinity. And yeah, so I mean, the work that I do is fundamentally useful for that because it allows a person to feel safe again, to let all that stuff out of their system. And then it's like being reset to default human mode, where we can feel our emotions and have compassion and be maybe even more open to education about how, our lives are impacting other people. Yeah, it's powerful. I think all of these are powerful tools for helping with that.
Hi, this is for Barb. Can you hear me? Yep. Yeah. Hi, Barb. I was so happy to be participating in yoga in Ann Arbor 20 years ago, and I was very deeply involved with Sun Moon Yoga, which I think you were trained at. Yeah, it was really a wonderful experience. But and I also wanted to say that I really enjoy your practice here. And I can remember that you filled Monteith Hall one time. I think it was for a Presbyterian women's retreat. And I'm just amazed that this Christian church is welcoming yoga. I mean, it wouldn't have happened 15 years ago, I think. So my question to you is, how do you feel received by the yoga community doing this? Because I found that I had a practitioner who I just loved following, and when she found out I was a Christian, she changed her schedule so she only did yoga Sunday morning, like 3 sessions Sunday morning, and I wasn't welcome. And that's something that happened a while ago, but I still think that community is not in favor of Christianity necessarily, and maybe more Buddhists. I have relatives who are Buddhists, and I wonder how you feel about that community and how you feel about this community.
Thanks. I personally think Jesus was a yogi. And if you look at the ancient texts through Hindu philosophy, they teach exactly what Jesus was teaching. And I think people who have never taken yoga feel like it's a religion, and they might be turned off by it. But if they only gave it a chance, it's more physical in the beginning, but then it's, again, that body awareness. And they realize what it offers. It's not anti-Christian whatsoever. To me, if anything, it's as Christian as anything else. Yes, it started in the ancient Hindu religion, but I think if people would just do a little more research on their own and really understand, they'd realize it's just for everybody. So that's interesting. But yes, it was Sun Moon Yoga where I took my teacher training, and she was a Hindu.
So I think sometimes I see acupuncture particularly, but these others, maybe yours as well, directed towards some like addiction, uh, smoking, cessation, alcohol cessation, and so on. But in the whole mental health picture, where do you see yourself as a therapeutic enterprise? I mean, can you deal with very ill, mentally ill people, and how, where are the limits on that?
I think just maybe to introduce it or for popularity, there was something, like stop smoking, and that's, treating in the ear. Or that's not all my work or any of our work. Is this on? Yeah. Okay. So, the acupuncture and the way that I use it, I mean, I've had like people after they come right from their chemotherapy treatment and they come right directly to, to my clinic. And there are 5 elements. It can be a whole complicated, intricate, I should say, way of addressing what needs to be done. But it definitely helps the body to heal itself. So what can it heal? Just about everything. Parkinson's even, or something, very neurological, digestive, insomnia, you name it, a whole list of things. And the body is capable of healing itself just with the right treatment. Isn't that wonderful?
Can I just add to that? I just want to add to that a second. It's what Emily had said earlier too. And yoga and your practice as well, it activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest and digest. And so many of us are in that fight and flight mode, more so than we should be or need to be. And these modalities just calm us down and allow the parasympathetic system to become more active so we can rest, because our bodies need to rest a lot more than we're giving them an opportunity to do so.
Transforming touch, the modality that I use the most these days, is specifically designed for people who have gone through some serious stuff. So they have a variety of diagnoses, whether they're children or adults. And it's, I would say it's work particularly for those who have found talk therapy to be limited. Like, I understand my problems, but I don't know why they're still here. And it's also, for people who maybe can't show up necessarily in a very consistent way where they're managing their life particularly well, because their body is so wrecked by the fight and flight mode, and also freeze, that they're, not completely functional. So they show up, whether that's to a Zoom meeting or to the table, and they just receive and basically experience some off-gassing of stress from their nervous system and get more functionality over time. This also works with people who have experienced like extreme digestive distress or autoimmune issues or other health conditions that arise because of stress, that they'll be only partially functional because of these things, but over time, as their nervous systems start to relax, they basically, those issues start to resolve and they start to get more functionality.
Yeah. Hi, Beth Gerwick here. I just wanted to know I was kind of curious if anyone in the room has had any experience with any of these practices and would like to kind of maybe talk about what specifically has happened inside themselves. I'll just start just real quick, just one. Good. I saw some. Yeah, let me tell you. I just, with yoga for many, many years, it took 3 years to really get into it. It really it's a discipline. But the breath work connected me to the ability to ask myself better critical questions when there's a drama or something that's happening that's just making me be an ineffective person in the world. And it turned it on. It gave me the sense of agency in myself to to make changes. I'll just share a little story about Rosanne. So I grew up in a very traditional medical family where, I mean, I wouldn't have said any of these things weren't helpful, but my family wouldn't have done it. So I was not super open to any of this. But in 2014, Rosanne sits behind me in the choir, and she noticed that my movements were a little different than they had been previously. I was a little stiffer, maybe a little stressed. And she asked me to come for a session of acupuncture, and it was a gift. And so I went, and I was like, okay, I'll do this. I don't think it's really going to do anything. But so I went, and immediately the next day, I felt depression lift. I didn't know I was depressed. I've always been melancholy. My name is Mel. I'm always melancholy. But I realized after that session the next day that something had changed. It was extraordinary. And during that time, I then recognized that I was actually in a pretty good state of depression around that time. And I went to Rosanne as many as 3 times a week for a while because it enabled me to cope with everything that was going on around me. And even through my husband's illness, I went to her several times. So there are times when I go back now for treatments because I know that I need that. And Barb teaching yoga here on Saturday mornings in January at 10 a.m. is when it starts again. Again, I would have thought yoga is good for you, but when I started doing it with her and becoming more open to these things, it has really allowed me to inhabit the work that I do more authentically. That's what I would say. And I'm so glad that Emily's here as well. We go way back, and I'm so excited for what you're doing, your background in massage as well, and all that you bring to this work. It's so important that we enter into it with an openness. We don't have to be sure of what's going to happen, but we can trust these wonderful caregivers that they can sense things about us that we just simply don't have access to right now because we're just too dang busy.
Hi, Andy Campbell. Personally, I've done a lot of exercise in my life, but it's kind of a preventive thing. And I was wondering about acupuncture as, I think of it as something to treat specific conditions. But I wonder if it's used kind of preventively in the sense of regular exercise to improve kind of your overall general mental and physical functioning, as opposed to treating specific conditions.
Well, the palpatory style that I use tells me what's needed. And there's a communication between what they call 5 elements, and each one of the elements has a pair of organs that represent the element. So if somebody wants to come because they are healthy and they just want to stay healthy, that will show up. If they maybe have inflammation in some kind of channels and they're not aware of it, I will detect that by this particular style of diagnosing. So, people come and, well, thank you, Mel. I mean, you can get benefit that you don't even know that you need in the first place. And that happens all the time. And I think I'd also like to say that I have treated a fair amount of widows. And when somebody passes away, a close person, it's very, very exhausting. And so 6 or 8 treatments, or however many, or fewer, I can't tell how many, it really helps the nervous system and helps people recover and deal with, death very well.
Hi, I'm Cassie. I went to grad school at Michigan, and I was going to go on your question here. I started to go to yoga once or twice a week because I wanted to be skinny and look good in my yoga pants at first. But then I found, especially during my boards and things like that, going to that session just really helped me just rest. I mean, I'm in the dental field. I clench my teeth all the time. It's terrible because I just felt such a huge amount of stress, and then going to that twice a week definitely helped with the calm. I've gotten away from it. I have 2 toddlers, and we moved in crazy life, but it would be nice to come back to that. So I'm happy to be here and hear this as just a reminder to come back to calm and healing and doing something about that for myself. So thank you.
I have a question. I wanted to ask you, well, I've definitely benefited from yoga, and it's been very more integrative for me. I have 2 daughters who've had a lot of trauma, and I have watched them be healed, through body work. That just amazes me. Because like Mel, I grew up in a household where anything outside the traditional doctors was seen as not legitimate. And so I am curious about what you see in terms of just the general environment, especially in Ann Arbor, in terms of hospitality towards your work, because we are a very sort of traditional academic medical community. What do you see now? What makes you hopeful? What makes you less hopeful?
You sound like you had an answer ready to go.
Well, I guess I do.
You're good at going first. You go first.
Well, I have more people say, my friends told me to come, So I think acupuncture is more standard now. It's not so peripheral like it used to be. So that's what my answer would be. And here, take it.
Okay, my answer. I would say people are mostly confused about what I have to say. I have this YouTube video that I like to send to people now that explains how the nervous system works and how these interventions can be helpful for trauma healing. And there's a lot of psychoeducation that goes into understanding how to work with trauma. And so for those who've experienced it, whether they have a background in, just going to therapy a lot, or whether they, have a psychological background or whatever, they have a little bit more of an understanding of why this would, fit in. But for the most part, people look at me like, what? What is that? What are you talking about? It's one of those things, I think, with healing, energy healing, body work, like you really have to experience it in order to have, also yoga, I would say. And I put acupuncture in the body work category as well. I would say, yeah, it's, like I didn't believe this stuff until I started doing it. I was, I studied neuroscience. I was like very scientifically focused, and then you experience it, you're like, there's something there, and then I think science catches up. Like, because of the scientific method, God bless it, it's a little slow. And so it doesn't necessarily match the reality of what is actually happening. We don't always fully understand why. But once you've experienced it enough that, you've resolved your own doubt about it, it's kind of like, I don't care anymore. And then you sort of become open to other things. You realize, oh, maybe I don't know everything, and maybe there are other methods that might be useful for me.
Yoga in the Western culture is really more about the physical aspects. You're going to see the skinny young girls in the yoga pants in the magazines. You're going to see them doing the handstands, hopping back into their planks and all that stuff. But the real goal of yoga is to calm the mind. The definition in the Yoga Sutras is it's the cessation of the mindset when the mind is rambling. And so it's all about that connection. And the goal of yoga is to ultimately end suffering, whether it's physical, so that you can be more aware of what's going on and treat it quicker, and also emotional. We suffer emotionally just as much as we do physically, and that's really the ultimate goal of it.
Hi there, I'm Amy. So I have both a sharing to answer your question and then a follow-up question. So I've actually tried all 3 of these modalities and found great benefit from all of them. And most recently, somatic therapy, which the revelation for me has been to recognize that I have been so cut off from the wisdom in my body that I mostly experience my emotions once I have a thought about them. And so somatic therapy helped me to connect what came before the thought, and to recognize how connected a nervous system response is to producing an automatic emotional state that then triggers a thought process. That has been mind-blowing, honestly. And so, yay, thank you. So my question, though, is, I've sort of developed my own ideas about this, but I was curious what you all think. How does your practices support both the internal self-compassion, external compassion, and forgiveness?
Is this okay? Can you still hear me? Okay. Is it on now? Okay. Honestly, I think I got into all this body-based work because I was so frustrated with people telling me to, like, just forgive, just be grateful. It's like, I don't know how to do that. How do you actually produce that state reliably? I can do it maybe on a retreat, or if I work really hard or meditate. And I think that we try to force ourselves to experience some things, but we're forcing ourselves out of that nervous system level of fight. Like, we're stressed, we're having a fight response. Like, I have to forgive, I have to be compassionate. Or, we have a flight response. It's like, I have to avoid that I actually am really angry at this person still. I have to run away from my own feelings because this doesn't feel safe. I've never been safe expressing my feelings. And so the work that I do directly is about creating the conditions to even have self-compassion, to have forgiveness. And I think it just happens naturally when you're okay. Like, when you start to resolve the stress in your body, whether that's through acupuncture or yoga or meditation or bodywork or somatic therapy or just taking long walks in the woods, like, when you get that point where you start to feel okay, that's when forgiveness and compassion starts to just bubble up from within you. That's my experience.
I think we all would say we all are reflecting kind of the same things because we're all doing healing. I would say with acupuncture that when I treat the front and the back, and then in the back is the second part of the treatment, and then I leave the room. So people are lying in silence, they feel safe, they feel seen, they're cared for, and their body, actually, their experience is making them what we're all saying, parasympathetic, or however you want to frame it. And I think, so that's just something that I would add. That I really feel that a lot of conclusions and self-healing occurs when I'm out of the room and they're in silence. We don't have to talk about anything, but they they reconnect with themselves. And isn't that wonderful? That's what we all need, right? We have so much hurling at us constantly, and more and more and more. How wonderful it is just to feel safe and be quiet and experience the healing coming from your own self, your own nervous system, right? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing all this with us. So I guess in yoga, I understand you're a part of any activity that you're leading, but in these other two where you're spending your days hands on other people, that I could see how that could be emptying or take its toll on your body. Particularly, Emily, I feel like, what does it feel like at the end of the day after you've been being so attentive to someone else? And wondering how your practices, if there's a way that you take care of yourself with your own. Yoga seems like it's built in. You're taking care of yourself as you're leading someone through it. But these, I could see maybe it could take a toll in how you deal with that.
That's a great question. The work that I do, it's like, okay, so it's going to sound crazy to say it this way, but it's kind of like magic. And it's kind of like as the other person is relaxing, because our nervous systems are connected, because we're sharing space together, we're attuning to each other as humans do, I actually experience the benefit of that as well. So the nervous system is complicated, and sometimes that feels like more anxiousness. Like when you're coming out of a freeze, you know, you're like, you have to go through, the fight or flight response again. Sometimes it feels like pain coming out. Sometimes it feels super relaxing, but the end result is that you're more regulated and more resourced by the end of it. So primarily that's my experience, but then also you have to, limit the number of sessions that you do in a day, because our bodies can only take so much, and take really great showers where you just like let everything go.
So true. I would say about the same thing. I can insert a treatment, and then I could just feel the change right away, and I feel like it feeds me. It's just after all these years, it's still very rewarding. And but you have to limit how many you do in a day. That by the end of the day, it gets a little tiring. So I would say about the same thing. Anything so?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious about whether you've worked with special needs populations. I'm thinking particularly of autistic people. We have an autistic grandchild, and I would think that some of this could be beneficial, but if it's known to be helpful to those people. Okay.
I personally haven't done that work explicitly, but the modality that transporting touch was created by a PsyD, Dr. Stephen Terrell, and he has worked primarily with kids in the foster system, kids in adoption system, and kids with severe neurodivergence, just autism, ADHD, kind of all across the spectrum. So I do have colleagues who focus specifically using this modality, and it does work pretty well for that. Yeah.
Well, my only experience with autism is when I tried to treat my nephew, and he went, Auntie Rosie. That's it.
I don't normally, but my daughter is also a yoga teacher, and she's a third grade teacher, and so she has several kids with ADHD, ADD, autism, and she's constantly offering yoga to them, helping them to calm down, kind of go in there within and just kind of feel what's going on. So, but I, as an adult, do offer classes specifically geared toward depression, because there's a lot of different poses and guided meditations that can really help that.
Well, I think, okay, we'll take one last question. Here we go.
I know there's a lot of youth mental health issue out there, and I know oftentimes there's like the hospital are closed. There's no hospital for mental health patients, and do you have like any experience with that? Any of?
I didn't get the question. Sorry, I was watching Jane because she's in front of the camera.
There's a lot of mental health issue, like for youth especially. Like there's really no, they go to therapists, right? But sometimes they say it doesn't really work for them. There's no, other physical sickness. You have specific treatments, like already well researched, can be applied. But mental health seems like right now it's all over the map, or to my shallow knowledge or experience. So I wonder whether you have any, because the therapist, sometimes they go to therapist, but depending on who the therapist is, sometimes works, some doesn't. So I guess this is a two-folded question. One is, do you have any experience in working with youth, with mental health issues? And second is in the spectrum of like Jesus' magical touch to some of the therapists doesn't work at all. Takes forever. Like you have to come forever to get the treatment. Like, what do you see your practices? How does that fit into that picture?
Yeah,
Real quick, yoga is just an additional tool. It's not the end all, but with other forms of modality and even medical treatment it just depends on the individual. But again, I never say it's the end all for everything that you might be going through, but it's an additional tool that's very helpful.
I would say we've been addressing that question. I mean, it does help. It can help if a person is willing to receive help, balance the nervous system, balance emotions. You know, I think our traditional styles don't make the separations that we make in our modern life so much. You know, so if a person comes, they relax, then issues come and they feel so seen and comfortable, they keep going. I think people make their own conclusions, so we don't have to be, we don't have to dichotomize so much.
So I don't particularly work with youth myself, although I would be open to doing it. It just happened to have worked with adults so far. The modality of transforming touch is particularly useful for young people. Again, it's where you show up. You don't have to talk. You don't have to dig into all your problems, and you feel, ideally, you feel more resourced at the end of it, which I know is a big complaint of therapy. Like, I just started crying, and now I have to go about the rest of my day. As far as the timeline, you know, what I tell clients is we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know how it's going to be. Some people are here for 6 months. Some people are here for several years. It sort of depends on the complexity of what you're dealing with and how long you've been dealing with it, and all the other factors that are also concurrently happening in your life. But I would say this modality in particular is body-based and focused on going slow, because the nervous system doesn't love a lot of change. It's going to pendulum swing. If it gets really relaxed, it's going to feel unsafe, and it's going to go back and create more contraction. So it just takes slow is fast and less is more. And then you sort of see the improvement in the rest of your life. But there's a website called Co-Regulating Touch, which has a co-regulatingtouch.com, which has a directory of people who do this work as well, if you're curious.
Thank you, everybody, for your great questions. And I want to thank this amazing group of practitioners. That was so, so helpful. I have a small thank you, but I also we'll get your contact information and actually put it on the website when you go on YouTube to look at this video. It will be as part of the introduction, so we'll have the contact information. So thank you, and here's a small token of our little holiday, ho-ho. Thank you from the Adult Faith Formation. And then I just want to give a shout out for the next series. We won't have Adult Faith Formation next week on the 30th, but we will start the Advent series right after that. And we have the pleasure of starting out with Sid Smith, who's the whole series is sort of focused on dealing with fear, which is a complement to the Advent theme about hope. So hope and fear are meant to be together. So we're doing the fear part. So thinking about fear is what Sid will lead us in one of her discussions. She does a great job in getting us all involved. And then we'll have a second session will be which George Lambrides, I think that's the right pronunciation. Is that right, Nancy? Lambrides is helping people face their fears. And then we'll have the last one will be psychotherapeutic approaches to unlocking fear with Kate Drinkwater. So that should be a great series. And I wish you all a wonderful Thanksgiving. And thank you again.